Tonight's session will take the form of a conversation, and this conversation will be primarily led by Mustafa and Jide, and I will be moderating the conversation and integrating the questions that come throughout this hour that we have together in the Q&A box. The Yoke network is, I guess, one of the pioneering businesses in its field, and we are very excited to welcome Jide and Mustafa tonight, who are alumni of Lancaster University and who have co-founded together the Yoke network. The Yoke network, is a performance-based platform that matches TikTok influencers and brands. And their exposure in the media has really, I think, given credit to the fact that it was a very innovative, or is still a very innovative business model in the way they approach matching TikTok influencers with brands. Currently, Yoke Network works with more than 3,000 influencers and brands including Gameloft, Universal Music, Revolut, and Pretty Little Thing, amongst many others. Yoke Network is the first in the UK to launch a pay-on-performance influencer network. And if I'm not mistaken, it's also one of the first in Europe and many other countries. So they're focused primarily, but not exclusively, on TikTok, and they're generating tens of thousands of downloads every month in the UK and the US for lifestyle and games apps. Yoke has also just set up the UK's most ambitious influencer content house, but there is a story to this that we are going to discuss in greater detail in our conversation. And as I mentioned before, don't be shy to put your questions into the Q&A box. I'm going to navigate this as we are moving through the session tonight. If you have not explored this yet, I highly recommend that you are going to visit the Yoke Network website and explore the case studies, see how this business model is operating. There's a range of interesting content available there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just drop back to the conversation. Perfect. And I'm going to open up the Q&A to see. There's already a question here, and we are going to come back to this one right after I have a chance to give Mustafa and Jide the chance to introduce yourselves. And for those who have never heard of the Yoke Network, please tell us, what are you doing?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hello,
yes,
hello.
perfect.
Hello.
Perfect.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I guess I'll probably start and then just can go on. But in terms of, I guess what Yoke is, I think pretty much got it spot on. So what we do is we allow brands, mainly mobile apps, to tap into TikTok influencers to help grow their businesses. So when it comes to mobile apps, they're always looking for new users and installs for their app. When we started, we saw there was a gap in the market when it came to influencers and doing it on a performance basis. So we used to charge for every install. We tweaked that a little bit now, but essentially we're still about the same game, trying to get as many users for apps through TikTok influencers.
Brilliant. So we know from obviously your story about being graduates of Lancaster University that you've spent some time here, and just something because you happen to come back virtually to this place, and looking back at your time at uni, what is the most precious lesson you think you have learned while you've been here?
I'll be able to answer this. So definitely, because when I entered uni, I didn't really think that I was actually ever going to go to uni. But one thing that I found most valuable was like the network. Like even to this day, like even within the company, like a few of the staff, and at one point, like majority of the staff were Lancaster students. And then just generally like the network from Lancaster, like I know I've got alumni friends who live in the city now, working in the financial industry, some who work in like the gaming industry and stuff. Like it's quite a few, and it's quite a high quality university for like the network. So that's the key thing I'd definitely say.
Yeah, I think yeah, I totally agree, to be honest. I'll just harp on the same thing. Like I think the people, the mindset, and essentially once you come out of university, you already have a network of people that are trying to aspire for something. So like Jid said, like we know people in different industries, people within our industry, and even people pop down to the office that we haven't seen in ages. but you get to catch up and share insights or just see how they are and stuff. So like, I think that's definitely by far like the biggest lesson learned is like really taking the people and getting to meet people and stuff like that.
Brilliant, thank you. And is there any advice you would share on where you have and how you've cultivated that network? Basically, really going back to the question, how did you have the idea of founding the Yoke network, and how did you two meet?
Yeah, I think I'll start off and then I'll let Jide take his his part of the story. But so I guess in terms of like network and stuff, so me and Jids, we've been friends since first year of uni, basically, had similar friendship groups and stuff. And then basically, well, since we were already friends, like things like, you know, business and things like that pop up. And you do talk about loads of business ideas, what's going on in the industry or like just in general within tech. And obviously, I think in my second year, I started to get more involved in Entrepreneur Society. And then Jide also became involved as well. And we ended up being on the exec. So I think I was vice president. I think Jide was marketing officer or communications officer. And we were working together on like a couple of different projects. Even after we left uni, we stayed in contact. And, you know, we started a podcast together as well, along with some other friends to do with crypto at the time, very early on, or kind of. And we got to ride the first initial big crash, talking about how our experiences through that. And then after that, we realized that, well, maybe crypto is not the thing that's gonna sustain us forever. How else can we, you know, what else can we build? We like to work with each other. And then I'll let Jids take the rest of that point.
Yeah, so I was working at a startup called Sweatcoin. And I initially joined them, funny enough, because I thought that they were like a crypto startup, but it turns out that they weren't. They were like kind of using the crypto aspect to attract for like marketing and PR. But eventually, while I was there, I was doing like a lot of different odd jobs. Like I was I joined as an intern, so I was on the influencer side, like helping them grow their marketing side and the network. Then I was also on the business development side, like getting on new partners for the marketplace and stuff. So then we grew while I was at Sweatcoin, 15, I think from 1 million to 15 million installs in like 7 months just through influencers. And then it was quite fast growth. And I was like, obviously had a relationship with a lot of the creators, speaking to them, like kind of managing that side. And then I realized just by speaking to them, they kept on asking, like, are there other apps that we can like promote? Like, we really want to like continue to like monetize the audience, etc. So then I kind of realized that I didn't think of it as an influencer network at the time, but I realized that there was like value in like helping app businesses to like grow through influencers. And there was like, you could like financially, they can be quite rewarding. So then what I then did was speak with Mustafa. Initially, we didn't know like what we were trying to solve, but we were looking for problems in like the influencer space. And then I think one night we managed to get, I think it was like Stadium Goods, like the CMO of Stadium Goods on a call at like, it was like, we were on the call, it was like 11 p.m. in the UK. And he was trying to help us grow their Instagram at the time. And I was just thinking, wow, like if we can get him on a call, and at the time, I think they were like doing like 100 mil plus in revenue and stuff. I was like, if we can get them on a call, like we could definitely get clients. So then I ended up leaving Sweatcoin, and Musti graduated with his master's. And then we just went all in and started Yoke and managed to get our first client in like the first like 28 days or something like that. And then from then on, we've just been on this like journey.
Brilliant. I think it's a very, very interesting story showing how your search for problems, you know, but also your work experience paired with your different experiences that you gained through your degree has really like converged into launching that idea. So that's a really useful insight. I'm just looking at the question here that we get into in the Q&A from Katie, and it's really guiding us to the main topic of this session. It's essentially looking into the specifics of TikTok influencers, how to leverage TikTok influencers for brand success. I will extend her question a little bit because she's asking, if you make content for one platform, social media platform like Facebook, can you share the same content elsewhere, like on Instagram? I would include in that question, can you share that as well on TikTok, or should you invest into specific content?
Well,
that's a good question. Go on, Kanjit, you take it.
Well, I was gonna say it depends on what type of content you're making, because depending on the type of your content that you make, depends on what platform it will perform better. So I definitely think you can make whatever type of content that you want for any platform, but it has to feed in to the algorithm, I'd say, or to the culture of the platform. An example is something that might work on Instagram stories. That's not going to work on TikTok as well. Or an amazing example, easy example for everybody to understand is like Snapchat content is 1-to-1, so it's like more personal, but then TikTok content is like 1-to-many. So it's like you can. So in the short version of the answer is like, yeah, you can use Facebook content and put it on other platforms. Just about how you structure that content.
Yeah, I think to add to that, like, yeah, just one, it depends on the content, and then just look at the data. I think it's even something that we're testing as well, in terms of just looking into how things perform on different channels as well. And you're just gonna have to figure it out by looking at the data. And you might just see, you know, maybe we're chatting shit, or we're kind of talking out of our asses a little bit. But I think, yeah, you just kind of have to look at the data and then see, you know, if it's possible, but take the risk and go for it. Why not?
Brilliant. I'm going to ask a question that is based on one of GD's talks that you have already delivered at the App Promotion Summit. I think for anyone interested in the details of you know, your work, I highly recommend watching that talk. Extremely insightful. And you mentioned there something about that the Yoke network drives results through data, creativity, and social equity. And I wonder if you could elaborate on these three pillars and how you think brands can really tackle these three.
Definitely. Well, in terms of the data side, it's essentially understanding like the influencer's audience and like so that they can like understand what influences their audience, and like data is key to like everything nowadays. So like for us, like data is crucial in terms of decision making for content, in terms of like watch time, in terms of the click-through rate, the type of people that even click on the content, so like audience data. That's really important. So looking at the data and the content will tell a story. Then social equity. What we've seen is like the power of like human recommendation and references. Like adding this to like your marketing mix is like very, very powerful, because it's like if I was to recommend everybody to go and read a book right now, then that's more powerful than us getting a Zoom ad if they did any ads popping up in the channel. And then finally, like with creativity, it's like standing out. Creativity is crucial because we live in a world where everybody's attention span is really, really short and trends move really quickly. So you need to stand out and you need to be creative and you need to be different. And that's crucial, I'd say.
Yeah, something that you mentioned, I think the statistic is that humans now have an attention span of the goldfish. So it's about 8 seconds. So I think the timing is actually quite accurate when it comes, I think, to some of the duration that you recommend for TikTok videos.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, you cut. Sorry, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Yeah, say that again. Sorry.
All right. I was just thinking, I think you mentioned something around the time span, the ideal time span of a TikTok video. And I was wondering if you can elaborate on this a little, because I think there are something critical you mentioned around the 8-second rule, 10 seconds. I don't remember.
Yeah. So essentially now I'd say is like, can you grab attention in the first 3 seconds? Because previously, if you actually think about how you use TikTok, like you have your phone and you're just scrolling up, if something doesn't grab your attention, you're just gonna swipe up. And like what I even do is like when my little cousins are on TikTok, I watch the way that they engage with the platform, because it's just interesting that what grabs their attention. So like if you think of it as content, if you're trying to push an ad or if you're trying to make content as a creator, you need to grab people's attention initially, and then the hook is then how you optimize your content. So it might be changing scenes, it might be what you show. Like there's certain things that are more viral, for example, like showing like a Tesla is gonna get more attention than showing a Nissan, you know. So it's like little things like that in terms of the hook and engaging the audience, then leads to like driving action and grabbing and maintaining people's attention.
Absolutely. I think you are touching here on the content as well, which is, I think, something that is really important that you mentioned earlier, that TikTok is a content-driven platform, not a follower-driven platform. And I think it's something that's extremely important. I think really linking to one of the questions we've here from Ben Wallace, because I think it's, you know, touching on some of the misconceptions, I guess, there are around TikTok. And he asks, TikTok clearly values grabbing people's attention quickly and loudly. Well, definitely quickly. How can a brand manage this without coming across as tacky, fake, or cheap? Well, I think this is not necessarily related to TikTok. It's the relation to content, right? Choosing the right content.
Yeah, I think what's important, which is probably sometimes what some brands struggle with, is TikTok is very different to other platforms. Like let's say Instagram, for example. Instagram is very like aesthetic, and the way they capture their attention is more like visually, is a bit more different. Whereas with TikTok, it's a lot more raw, and you know, sometimes some of our better performing ads and content is, you know, things that are made quite quickly, kind of authentic, and kind of get the point across quite easily. Whereas we've seen some cases where, you know, when it's two-stage and they don't want to look tacky, you know, it doesn't perform well. So, you know, the TikTok audience is smart, this generation is smart, and there's certain things that people resonate with. And sometimes you just have to take those risks again. Like the brands have to be willing to be agile, willing to take risks, and that's kind of how you get success.
I'm just seeing here a question from Finn that really builds on this kind of answers you just given. He says, for influencer promotions, what creative style or structure have you found works best when promoting a product? I mean, to some degree, I guess it's difficult to say because it really depends on the product.
Yeah, that's a good question, to be fair. It sounds like someone's trying to use it for their own business. So definitely, I'll see if I can help you in some way. So with that, yeah, once again, like I think I agree. It depends on the product and it depends on like the category. Sometimes, you know, something that works well for, you know, a health and fitness type of product, you'll try and apply that to like, you know, gaming or like a game or something like that. It just doesn't work the same, because what is the actual user or the audience, like what do they need from that product, and like what is the value that's being kind of talked about. So I think different content style and structure is needed. It's something that we're always learning, and you can't just kind of, you know, once you get one, you use it, like that type of structure that works. But you always have to be kind of innovating and thinking and being creative, like Jude said, and thinking outside the box to maintain well, good results and performance in that way. So yeah.
What is the product, out of curiosity?
I don't know.
Let us know.
Yeah, then let us know, man. Let us know. See what we can do.
I reckon I could tell you what, or give you come up with an idea of what to do, just because it depends on the product.
I think take the chance, because it's a tailored answer to your question. So let us know what the product is. Yes, we will look at some of the other questions that are just coming through, because they tend to be quite thing on one another. I'm just looking into How do you manage to convince the influencers to promote the brands on TikTok? Do you pay what they, well, no, they're not paid what they ask for, but I'll leave it to Jide and Mustafa to answer. So do you pay what they ask for, or is there any other method? And on what basis do you approach influencers, followers, and content?
Well, it depends. Initially, like from my perspective, I think it depends on the creator. Different creators, it's the gray market, like influencer marketing. So some creators are more expensive than the other. But really and truly, it still is about making sure that the creators have value, no, are delivering enough value in terms of their audience size and the scale of the creator, and the business or the client or our clients can get value, if that makes sense. So often like it just depends on the deal, but it depends on the creator, I'd say.
Because we are still waiting for the mystery answer from Finn, someone else asks, would you also use TikTok for a service company or only for products? I guess there are quite interesting cases where it was used for a service.
I've seen it, or I've seen some ads, recently of like mortgage advisors, that the YouTube ads that everyone gets, like how you can become a drop shipping mod overnight and all of this stuff. I started to see that on TikTok. So yeah, if you just think about this, whatever isn't on TikTok, if you make it on TikTok, and you're early there, you can probably own that niche, and the rest of the audience will follow from other platforms sooner rather than later. Like I've got friends, one of my friends, he owns like a property business. I was telling him from like literally way before we even did the Wave House, I was like, you should just do house tours on TikTok, and like, because he sells houses in Canary Wharf. And now there's property talk, like loads of people do it. One of my other friends, he owns a gym. I was saying like, you should literally just be training and pushing out TikTok content. There's gym talk. So like, there's gonna be everything talk. So I say you can do anything.
Take note, guys. There's a lot of good business advice here. Yeah, and building on that, really, I think the question is, would you give different advice to big corporations such as Universal Music compared to startups? Or do you think there's something that is uniting your advice for businesses of any scale and how they're using TikTok?
Interesting. Yeah, I think I would give different advice, just simply because well, I guess with a bigger brand, typically you probably like, even when we're speaking to them, like it's not always about like direct results straight away, and ROI straight away. They take a more longer term view. They often do consider things like brand, and just aligning themselves with certain creators and things like that. I think in terms of smaller startups and things like that, I think once again, like they obviously both face the same kind of issues, actually, to be fair. I might even change my answer completely. I think I would probably give them the same advice. Take risks, be agile, because smaller companies typically worry about ROI and making sure their brand is fully explained, all of these things, and like fully taking control of content so that they don't lose any money. And then flip side, with bigger companies, they worry about image, PR, all of these things that it makes sense because they've built such a large brand and they have to go through so much compliance and legals and stuff like that. But at the same time, what often does kind of separate the winners and the losers is the ones that move quick with trends and things like that, moving fast. Two, ones that take risks and appear to stand out, and three, the ones that are just the most agile in all cases. So I think even though they're different sizes, they both actually have the same issues that stop them from really getting their results.
I believe in one of the previous talks that you have delivered, you said something about testing different ways or content, I think, on TikTok. What's your view on that? How to leverage testing best?
I think that in any walk of life, you should always test, not just on content, because testing is learning, and you be able to find out new ideas and new things. So like I think on TikTok is crucial for brands to just test. Might even be on a burner account, or it might be on a burner account is basically like a second account. But like you should always test different content frameworks, content ideas, trends. But it's just a percentage of your content that you test. Like it could be 1 out of every 10 posts is a test, but you need to stay ahead of the loop just generally, because social media is such a saturated place, and authenticity doesn't actually really live online anymore. Whereas like before, in other media platforms like TV and like shows can last for years, but now like because everybody has democratized access to the same tools, which is like social media, anyone can copy trends, and anyone can copy on new ideas, and they'll go viral now and just saturate. There's no like one thing. Do you know what I mean?
Do you ever face any sort of issues or fights over content, proprietary content, or people being worried about this being copied? I mean, obviously they are exposing it to the public, and to some degree, copy is flattery. But I think, what are your views on this?
Yeah, everything's gonna get copied. You just have to be quick. Like I don't even care as much anymore, just because I feel like what you should focus on, which is what we focus on, is like what's the process? Because if you own the process and you have the source and like you have the strategy, then you already know that you can repeat something like 100 times, or you can come up with new ideas 100 times, and you have that framework. If you're just copying, then ultimately you're going to hit a brick wall, and like,
yeah,
you also always be second place.
Brilliant conclusion. Yeah. By the way, Finn shared with us his mystery product, and that is he is testing at the moment beauty and health. So I guess maybe Jide or Mustafa can share something on beauty products on TikTok, because I remember there's a case on the Airbrush app, I think, which is quite an interesting one, and how it was leveraged.
Well, in terms of pitching how you'd make content, definitely what I would think is that if it's beauty and health, you got to think about the audience. Like people would use that product for what reason? Most people want to use it to look good or to get better, and some people might be intimidated as well. So I'd say like how-tos in terms of how to use the product is probably crucial, and it's about the content structure as well. Like what I feel is that people on social media, if something looks difficult, then the way that they want to digest it is if it looked like satisfying and it was like a soft intake for their brain. That's it, like the only way I can describe it. So it's like if you can structure the content with like aesthetic sounds and how-to content, so things that look difficult are easy to use, then you could structure it in a way that will probably convert better. So that's what I think.
I think let me add to that. Another thing you could add on is like using your journey, or using the journey of like a customer as well. Like Jid's mentioned, like, you know, what people want, you know, to use your product for, whatever it is. You know, you could start, you know, a video with like, you know, let's say it's an acne cream or something, like show someone with either really great skin or, you know, really bad skin, and then run them through the process of like how it either changed, or, you know, how they, you know, gain confidence and things like that. So I've seen that work a lot, where you show like the journey for someone, and, you know, everyone wants to know like, what's the product, like how did that work? Because once again, I think I don't know if Jide or Katerina mentioned it, but TikTok is more interest based. So you know, you're not just finding people that follow you, you're finding people that are interested in particular topics. So you're going to find that niche that you know, are really invested. They all suffer from acne. I'm sure there's acne talk, you know, so literally like you'll find it like that. So I definitely leverage a journey for the user or the customer.
I'm looking for, there was a question on how you brief influencers. Yeah, it's a question which asks, when briefing influencers on creating content, do you brief them differently if you're using their content for paid ads as opposed to organic posting, or are you briefing all content to be able to be used for paid if wanted?
Yeah, I think on our side, yeah, just for context, I guess the way we brief as well, we have our own influencer app. So what we do is we have all the influencers on there that are able to see all the campaigns that they can promote. On our side, we don't kind of optimize briefs based on if it's going to be paid or not. Ultimately, we want to just test if it's generally performing well, and test the content structure in that way. And then whether it's used on paid or not, if it's performed well, there's an option to also use it on paid and see how that performs at that point. But what we've been able to see is, like if it performs well organically, we're able to then also either sell it to the client or utilize it on paid.
Brilliant. There's a question that asks, what are your thoughts on Instagram Reels when you compare it with TikTok?
Yeah, go on, you can take it.
Yeah, I think it's good. Like, it's another ad format. So like what you're looking at now is like all these social media platforms are releasing like new ad formats. So one thing is like Instagram Reels, for example. You're starting to see ads there. So I think that is good for advertiser. As a platform, it's like just another way to it's like another product in their like platform arsenal to like engage or to generate revenue. And then also for the audience, we're seeing like organically, like IG, Instagram Reels are getting pushed more. So they're getting more engagement, more views. So if you're on Instagram and you're trying to grow, probably best posting like IG Reels, because you'll get more exposure and in turn will probably get more followers as well.
There's a quick question. I think it's going to be a very quick one, just to put everyone into the right time frame. It says, how did you know that influencers was a means of marketing when you started out? And I think, well, you did. It's not like influencers just became a thing last year, and you have not graduated 20 years ago. So
I don't know how old we look.
For context, I'm not over 30.
We weren't that early. I think just a quick one, like for us, we saw it was working on Instagram and stuff, but it was still very broken. So that's why we were like, well, do you know what I mean? If it's broken, how can we try and fix it? So it wasn't like we discovered it. So if we did, yeah, we would be in a different place.
it says here, we've seen TikTok become a huge tool for marketers. How do you see this evolving in the future? And I'm wondering if you maybe can touch upon this whole idea of TikTok aging up. Is this a trap, or is this actually benefit for TikTok? How do you see it?
If you want to go, mostly I'll go.
Yeah, you go.
So the question was basically TikTok aging up and how it's going to change.
Yeah.
I genuinely think TikTok aging up was always going to happen, because like it's the same thing with every other social media platform. Like, and if you look in the past, like I always say, history tells the future. So if you look at Instagram and you look at Facebook, like, I don't know, for some of the students here, that may be before your time. But what it is that they were on a similar trajectory to TikTok. They were a new social media platform. They blew up. It was only for students. It was young people. And then as the platform matured, there's just a plethora of different content that came onto it. Same thing is going to happen to TikTok. It's just happened a lot quicker and in a different ad format and a different content format. So from my perspective, I do think that anything that you see with some of the bigger platforms, in terms of TikTok scaling out its content, the way that engages, the features in terms of the content formats, it's gonna develop. In terms of the audience, it's definitely gonna age up. Because I know that a lot of parents now are on TikTok. A lot of older age groups are on TikTok. Which is good, because it's just they're gonna find their content there. And then finally, TikTok's really pushing towards like the shopping feature and live shopping feature. if you look at like one hack that I do is I look at a lot of what's going on in China on their platform Duoling, and like the content formats and the business model over there. And then I look at like well, that's most likely going to come to the UK because that's a more mature version of their app that's in the Western market. So yeah, it's gonna end up being a one vertical business that like I think that they're gonna try to control everything.
Yeah, I'm spotting a question here that I think is really interesting. What's the most memorable project or brand or influencer you have worked with at Yoke, or one that you're most proud of?
I let Musti say.
Oh, I don't even know, man. I was hoping you'd go. Oh, that is tough.
Well, the most interesting influencer that we worked with. There was a time when we did. Here's one. This is good. There was a time when we worked with like Just Michael, because like we got him. Like a lot of the big creators were we were working on TikTok when they were like literally hitting 1 million followers and just blowing up. So like we worked with Just Michael, and he's massive on TikTok now. He's got like 50+ million or something like that. Then even like where Bryce Hall followed the Wave House as well. That was funny. And even Bella, what's her name again?
Bella Porch, yeah.
Bella Porch used to follow the Wave House as well. So like that's kind of, I wouldn't even say cool because I don't really I don't really care that much about the creators specifically because it's like not my audience in terms of like I'm a bit older and I'm more interested in like sports and stuff. But for the credibility of what we were doing, it was good.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Probably another one was like Dr. Alex from Love Island. We ran a campaign with him for a little while, working with a fintech app we had called Chip. It worked really well, but it was just it was really cool because you get to see not only just insights in terms of data and audience and stuff, but also the insights in terms of how it performs and like, you know, how much of a purchasing audience he has and certain Instagram influencers. So I think that was interesting, and actually seeing like the numbers behind some of these celebs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm spotting a question here, very obviously, I guess, coming from a person having a small business. And the question is, how do you advise small creatives and small business owners to start using TikTok in order to receive recognition? You've mentioned some of the influencers with an absolute massive success story behind their content. What can we learn from that? Or is there a different strategy completely you recommend for someone who is just starting out?
Yeah, I guess yeah, it's a bit of a tough one because I guess with creators, you're just well, it depends on the niche as well. But in general, when we're speaking about those larger macro ones, they just did everything. Like when it came to every trend, trying that, as well as, you know, they work hard in terms of, you know, posting. So they'll post like 3, 5 to 4 or 5 times a day or whatever across different platforms as well. So I'd probably have them a little bit separate, but you could probably learn some things from how they grew. But it's really just tapping into and understanding what is being spoken about, what's happening on the platform, what's trending, and how you can leverage that for your brand. It could be 2 approaches. One, you could not focus everything on your brand, or you could really carve out a niche, because there's little things like a friend of mine has like a CMOS business. I was just saying, yo, just post about CMOS and stuff. And I found out there's like a whole American CMOS talk type thing. So like people care about that stuff, but you can do that and like really take over that niche, like Jide said. So it depends how early you are. If you're not early, then you just got to think outside the box and keep grinding. So yeah.
A bit of a future outlook here. How do you think the use of influencers, and particularly TikTok, I guess, will change with the growth and introduction of the Metaverse?
Well, in terms of that, I think that there's going to be influences in the Metaverse. Because like it's the Metaverse, if anything, what it will just do is replicate what happens in the real world, just in a different format. I think that there's obviously going to be different, like obviously with the NFTs and like and even with the metaverse just generally, it's probably not going to be called like the metaverse or anything. It's probably going to just be integrated with the real world anyway. So like I was even watching a video where you like, if you think about the products like and devices that we're using, like used to just be in your phone, but then like for the big tech companies, they're scaling out of that into like wearables. No one's calling it, it's a wearable, it's a product. You know, it's like, that AirPods, if we would talk about AirPods like 5-6 years ago, we'll be like, it's wearable, it's wireless headphones, but it's actually just product. So all of the products in the metaverse will be normal things in the real world and vice versa, I believe.
Yeah, I think I agree.
No, I think it's a really interesting peek into the future, even if the infrastructure, the 5G internet is not yet there to really make the metaverse a reality, so to say, if we treat it as a reality, but definitely something that's really transforming some of the digital marketing tools we have. I'm aware of the time, so I know we have 15 minutes left, and I really would like to ask a few questions that obviously come up in the chat, but also through for something that came up before, and that is probably the first one is, what do you find is the hardest part of your job? Because it sounds extremely exciting. It's absolutely pioneering work, not just in the UK, but also across many different markets. And it's just interesting to hear like a realistic account of what is the hardest part.
Yeah, I'll say that. I think hardest part is that is way harder than you think initially coming into it. But I think the pressure of like being responsible for like other people's livelihoods, and do you know what I mean? Essentially, every person you employ, you have to think about, you know, you're supporting maybe the families, you know what I mean? So there's always that, and we have to make sure that you're keeping the ship going. When things are tough, that weighs on you more. When things are good, how do we maintain it? And then I think, yeah, probably just in general, like the having to make just macro decisions, I think, like that, you know, isn't going to benefit everyone, but you have to make those decisions, like maybe cutting certain people, that you kind of just have to do for the, you know, for the good of everyone, or for the good of business, to keep everything afloat. So some of those decisions you have to make can be really tough, you know what I mean? So some of the things that you learn kind of along the way, that's definitely the hardest part of the job.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, or no?
I was going to say everything. No, joking. Yeah, what Musi said, really.
Cool.
Yeah. No, I think it's, you know, what you mentioned, also just the whole conversation around the different aspects of your business, the way you develop the expertise, the niche you found, the way you were looking for problems. I mean, it all shows quite the journey. And I think this kind of expectation of quick results, or that there is, some sort of a linearity in the process, I think you clearly have shown that this is not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I would definitely say this overnight entrepreneur scenario that is like kind of pushed online. In reality, like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, that's not a long time, but it doesn't feel long. It does feel long when you're inside it. And like this, I changed my life over 12 months. If you kind of think like what goes up quickly is likely to come down quickly, because it takes time and reps to build a foundation. And like, I think if I was to give like advice, it would be like, understand like the 10,000 hour rule, which is like, it takes you like 10,000 hours to become, I think it's like world-class or an expert in something. So if I think about my journey, like we've been running this company for 3.5 years, and I just always think, okay, well, if I'm going to always be an entrepreneur, but imagine the type of decisions and the experience and how well versed I'll be in like 10 years time or 15 years time, when we're in our 30s and 40s and stuff. So like you can only learn through experience, I think.
Yeah, I think it really touches on one of the questions I definitely wanted to ask you, which is, what is the kind of advice you would give to the students who are looking to, maybe have their own business at some point, or even who are just really inspired by your story and want to become really successful in whatever career they choose. So yeah, what would be your key advice to them, or a quote you would want to leave with them?
Okay, I'll probably take the advice first, quote after, but probably the advice first, probably first off, get a complimentary co-founder or co-founders. I think you can't, like, you can go wrong with that, don't get me wrong, but like, when things get tough, like, it's so hard. And I really admire the people that can do it themselves. But having, like, for example, Jide there, like someone, you can go through this with, is super important, because like there's times where, think everything's on the line and you're like, what, how am I going to get out of this? But it's not how am I going to get out of this, it's how we're going to get out of it. So you have the opportunity to rely on someone else when, you're not feeling your best, or you're not fully in it. The other person kind of can take lead, and then vice versa as well. So you have someone that's directly there that you can kind of talk about all this stuff with and experience it with, I think is really important. And also just, we hold ourselves accountable as well. Like, if, Jids is doing something wrong, or I feel like he can be improving, like I'm there telling him how he can improve, and then I'm expecting him to take it on board, and vice versa as well. So I definitely think, like, co-founder is like the most important thing. That definitely, like, from my experience. And then another thing is just keep going as well, like, because one thing that we've learned during this business, I don't know if anyone's seen that picture on the internet where it's like someone's like digging for like gold or like treasure or something. There's two people. One guy is like quite far away, but he just keeps going. And then another guy is like right about to get to the treasure, but he gives up. It's like, that is so raw and has happened. It hasn't happened, but like, it could have happened. And it's like, the longer you stay in the game, the more like of a chance you have to win. So you just got to kind of be a cockroach in a way, and just like stay in the game. But obviously, if it's not working, you have to be real with yourself and be able to exit, and just say, this isn't working, I've given enough time. But definitely just stay in the game and just keep pushing, man. Even if everyone's saying it's not going to work, if you truly believe, and if you have a co-founder too, if you guys both truly believe, just keep going. That's what I'd say.
100%. I definitely think, from my perspective, it's as an entrepreneur, like, things don't happen overnight, so you have to just be patient. Patience is like crucial, and you also have to be ready to face that bad news and make tough decisions, because like, as when you start to build a company and when you actually have a team, like, there's things that you're never even going to expect to hear in terms of people's personal problems, in terms of people's like what's going on in their life. And it's things that you never even think of, because you're in the moment, you're like, oh, I'm building a company, but you forget that there's actual humans that you're working with. So like, you have to be prepared to make like bold decisions, and you have to also work on just being like as level-headed as possible. One thing I definitely think is like, don't get too high, don't get too low, because really and truly, at the end of the day, you can't even make decisions in a state that isn't a calm state. Like, you can't make rational decisions in a calm state, because if you're angry or you're flustered, you're not gonna rationalize things, and you're gonna make decisions in the heat of the moment. And if you're upset, then again, you're not gonna rationalize things, and you might just think too short term. It's a long-term game, life in general, and in business, it's a long-term game. And as long as you make decisions where you think of the long term, you should make the best decision. It'll help you to make the best decision. That's what I'd say.
Nice, you are very, very on the spot with this in terms of your advice for life. You should be mentoring more of our students, I guess, on more topics than just social media and business life. But well, truly, everything you said is really spot on. I know that we have a few minutes remaining. I'm just wondering, would you like to share with us a little bit of what were the main lessons you have taken from the Wave House project, if you would like to touch upon this, because I think it's something that a lot of people are extremely fascinated with. We've all watched the BBC Channel 4 documentary, so everything about it is pretty present in the audience's mind. So what have been your main takeaways there?
Number one, definitely, if you're going to do something, do it as big as possible. I always definitely say that because like if you want to stand out, just something that we went into the mindset with the Wave House is that if you're going to stand out, if you want to stand out, you have to be willing to do something more extravagant than anybody's ever going to do. So that our thing with the Wave House was that when people saw the timeline, they're going to stop and say, like, you can't not scroll past it. For example, it's like if you like, because we had like the face mask and like the mansion and stuff, it's like you cannot not scroll past that. So definitely it's like do things as big as possible and shoot for the stars. But then at the same time, I think a key lesson that we learned is like the timing for the business. I think for us it went really well in terms of like PR. But I think what we wanted to really do is kind of expand out of our away from just our network and try and scale the business like horizontally. But for us, what we realized is that it's probably best for us as a company to just focus on what we do best and scale that even more. And then at the top, when you get further along your journey, then you can try out other more extravagant things. But I would do it again because it's good learning.
Yeah, I think just to harp on Jay's last point about doing it again. Yeah, I think the biggest learning is like, yeah, take risks or calculate risks when you can. Just because if we didn't do it, I think it would always be in our heads, you know, wow, I should have done it or I regret it. And since we've done it, we've actually, for context, we're not doing it anymore. We've actually closed the project, but like, since doing it, you learn a lot from it, just in general, like what went well, what went wrong. One thing is, you know, things like fail to plan to fail, or whatever. We obviously went with certain targets and that we wanted to hit, and like, you know, everything that happened, we planned for. It obviously went way over our expectations in terms of like the success and the numbers and stuff. But you know, we had a plan for everything. So we wouldn't have done that without like understanding that we need to be successful and we will be successful. So I'd definitely say that.
Yeah, great. I think what you've mentioned here, you know, plan to fail and failing to plan. Something also that is really, I think, very profound in some of your conversations around how the Yoke network functions and how you're managing the matching up of brands with influencers is that how extremely data driven it is. And I think it's sometimes the aspect that, at least in our marketing curriculum, is completely ignored. That the level of data involvement that you use to, you know, gain insight and to match up relevant stakeholders with each other. There is one question that I think we'll take as the final one, and that is, do you have visibility on your influencers' demographics? And if yes, can you tweak the videos to target that specific audience? But I think the broader question behind it is, how do you leverage data to make sure that you have the best possible success rate with the content that is launched for the business as well as the influencer?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think firstly, like data is super important. Like everyone says it is data-driven decisions is like a buzzword and everything, but it's super important because we were billing on, you know, installs and things like that very early on, like the hard performance metrics. We needed, like, if to put food on the table, you need to understand data. You need to really try and find the most amount of value. The way we do it is, one, we collect as much data as we can on the influencers, the downloads, the audiences go into and things like that. Once we're able to see, you know, what performs well in terms of like our key metrics, like maybe CTR, like click-through rate or any other key metrics that we look at, we really just try and replicate it as much as possible. And like, it's all about testing and iterating all the time, like we talked about earlier. once again, yeah, we collect as much data as we can, and we try and utilize as much data as we can. And you can always get better. You can always automate processes. You can always even get more data insights. You know what I mean? But if you just don't have data insights, like it's impossible. We wouldn't be able to do our job. And very early on, you know, a lot of everything was hit and miss. It's like literally chuck this creative out. We think it will work. Add this song to Instagram story, and we just hoped. And some of it did well. I know it could have done better. So, you know, as time goes by, we really learned like the importance of data and analyzing it. Cool. Okay. Yeah,
Thank you. And
Yo,
I don't know.
I definitely agree with what Musi said in terms of you definitely need to leverage data, because to be honest, I don't want to repeat what you said, but yeah, data is definitely crucial.
I have to admit, this was also a bit of a selfishly motivated question because I'm teaching big data analytics this week and next week. And it's a bit hard to motivate my marketing students to listen to big data analytics with some level of excitement. So
honestly, that's the most interesting part, and that's the most useful part of the industry. So if you want to get into marketing or anything, you know, not even just marketing, just in general, nowadays, you need to understand data. The more you understand it and can utilize it, the more valuable you are. Yeah. Such an important skill set. And we're not just selling it because, you know, we're trying to help Katerina, but
yeah, do you know what, just even advice as well is that for myself personally, being honest, I wasn't the best student at uni in terms of like, I turned into a better student in my final year. And that's when I started to take things, like if this was on at uni, I probably would have been dragged to this talk by Musi and Clinton. So like, number one, yeah, you need to be surrounded by the right people at university, because like, I know word of a lie, like some of my university friends really showed me through their actions, like the value of like things that go on in the uni curriculum. But then two, like it's crazy how we did a module on market research, and I swear to you, yeah, that was the most boring module at the time, yeah. But market research is so crucial because like even there's aspects of our business where I'm like, wait, we can literally build like a market research type a network so that we can make more actionable insights for our data, and like we can have more input data so that we can like have more successful campaigns. So that in the real world, it's crazy, but all these like curriculums and modules and topics, you could actually spin businesses out of them and do pretty well, especially around data. Data is a big industry.
Thank you. I cannot thank you enough for this final touch on data, but also, I mean, you have survived marketing 210 market research, which is quite a tough module to go through. So I just wanted to really I know we're running 2 minutes over time, just to take this minute to thank you wholeheartedly for your time, for joining us tonight, for coming back virtually to Lancaster University to mentor the students who are still here, mentoring those who are coming to us at some point, and those who have been with you, potentially graduating the same year or around that same time. You've shared a lot of inspiring advice well beyond the business world. I think also with regards to, you know, personality, self-improvement, managing different challenges, how you have walked through them. And just you being here tonight is just really, I think, credit to this community and the network that you have cultivated, that you have built, and we are just really grateful that you are coming back in this kind of mentoring role for our students and for the whole audience, really. So just a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I'm seeing some of the comments. I really appreciate it. Also, I'll say, if you're young, hungry, and talented, then like reach out to us because we'd be interested in seeing how we could work with some of the students at Lancs and give them opportunities. Being real, Musi is tough. He's a tough person to hire. I'll blame him. He's very tough to impress. So come with your A game. But definitely, we're always on the lookout to work with people who are talented, who want to change the world, and just drop us a message.
These are absolutely brilliant news. I think you might be bombarded on LinkedIn with quite a few requests and messages now that you've said it. So be prepared.
might take
are
us a while, but we'll get back.
Yeah. And also
Thank you so
another,
much.
just because I'm sorry, I know that we're over time, but it's just like, I wish certain people would tell me this if I was at uni. What you should also do is that, I know everyone's like, oh, if I'm trying to hire, how do I get experience? Show experience, like literally, show that you got action. Go out and take the jugular and do projects for free while you're in uni, while it's cheap, while you haven't got rent, while you haven't got responsibilities. And then when you go to employers, or if you're going to try and get opportunities, you literally reel off a portfolio. I did this, this, and this, and you're more likely to get hired than other candidates and stuff. People want to see action, like employers want to see action, and that's crucial advice.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. What you have shared, as I said, was well relevant beyond the business world, beyond the entrepreneurial journey. So it's really well taken, well received, and it's coming from wise people. So we really appreciate you being here tonight with us. And yes, just on behalf of really the whole audience, the members of staff who were joining tonight, myself, of course, but also all the future students who are joining us at some point, just a big thank you. And we hope to have a chance again to talk to you on the future of the Yoke network and whatever is going to happen with the development and with TikTok and other social media platforms. And it would be very exciting to watch your next steps in this area. Thank you very much to everyone. We are going to close this session on it. And yes, just to close it on, a big thank you to Jide and Mustafa for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.